Hi, everyone. Welcome to Random Crime Vids Daily, where we dive deep into the most gripping and unsettling true crime stories. Today, we have a chilling tale that unravels the facade of a perfect family, leading to an unthinkable tragedy. If you love true crime, make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on TikTok to never miss an update. Now, let's get into today's story. At Oak Lane stood an elegant two-story home to the Corrin family. To the outside world, they appeared to be the perfect family, successful, attractive, and happy. Dwayne Corrin was known for his warm smile and impeccable taste in wine. His wife, Sandra, was a part-time yoga instructor whose kind nature and community involvement made her a beloved figure in the neighborhood. Their children, 8-year-old Lila and 5-year-old Theo, were bright and well-mannered, often praised by teachers and other parents alike. As summer approached, the Corrin family was preparing for what they hoped would be their best year yet. Dwayne had recently secured a promotion at work, Sandra was expanding her yoga classes, and the children were excelling in school and their extracurricular activities. Little did they know that their world was about to be shattered by an unthinkable tragedy. It was a warm Tuesday afternoon in late May when Zara Jackman first stepped onto the porch of the house. At 23, Zara was a vision of youthful energy and enthusiasm. Her long auburn hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her emerald eyes sparkled with an eagerness to please. She smoothed down her crisp white blouse and took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. Sandra Corrin answered the door, her face lighting up with a welcoming smile. She ushered Zara inside, calling out to Dwayne and the children. As the family gathered in the living room, Zara's gaze was immediately drawn to Dwayne. His strong jawline and kind eyes made her heart skip a beat, though she quickly composed herself. Zara's background seemed impeccable. A recent graduate from the local university with a degree in child psychology, she came highly recommended by the agency. Her references spoke glowingly of her responsibility, creativity, and genuine love for children. As she interacted with Lila and Theo, it was clear that she had a natural rapport with kids. The children were instantly drawn to her warm personality and the exciting activities she proposed. Dwayne and Sandra exchanged approving glances as they watched Zara with their children. They were impressed by her educational background and the thoughtful questions she asked about their family routine and the children's individual needs. Zara explained her philosophy on childcare, emphasizing the importance of structure balanced with fun and learning opportunities. As the interview progressed, Zara's attention subtly shifted between the family members. While she maintained her focus on the children, her eyes would occasionally flicker to Dwayne, lingering just a moment too long. If Sandra noticed, she gave no indication, her own focus primarily on how well Zara was connecting with Lila and Theo. By the end of the meeting, the decision was unanimous. Zara would start the following week, watching the children after school and during the summer break. As she left the house, Zara felt a surge of excitement, not just for the job, but for the opportunity to become part of the Corrin family's world. What the Corrin family couldn't have known was that behind Zara's polished exterior and impressive credentials lay a complex web of half-truths and carefully crafted personas. The young woman they had just welcomed into their home would become the catalyst for a series of events that would tear their perfect world apart. From the outside, the Corrin family seemed to have it all. Dwayne's career was on an upward trajectory, his recent promotion cementing his status as a rising star in the competitive world of investment banking. His colleagues admired his sharp mind and easygoing nature, while clients were drawn to his confident demeanor and track record of success. Sandra, with her lithe yoga instructor's body and serene demeanor, was the picture of health and balance. Her yoga studio had become a sanctuary for many in the community seeking peace and wellness. She juggled her growing business with volunteer work at the local women's shelter, earning her a reputation as both a skilled instructor and a compassionate member of the community. Lila, their precocious 8-year-old, was a budding artist whose paintings already adorned the walls of her elementary school. With her father's charm and her mother's grace, she was well-liked by her peers and adored by her teachers. Theo, at 5, was a bundle of energy with an infectious laugh. His kindergarten teachers praised his curiosity and kindness, noting how he always included other children in his games. However, beneath the polished veneer of their lives, cracks were beginning to show. Dwayne's demanding job often kept him at the office late into the night, his absence at family dinners becoming more frequent than his presence. The stress of his high-pressure career manifested in mood swings that he struggled to control, sometimes snapping at Sandra over minor issues. Sandra, while outwardly calm, harbored a growing resentment towards Dwayne's absence and emotional distance. She threw herself into her yoga practice and volunteer work, finding fulfillment outside the home that was increasingly lacking within it. The passion that had once defined their relationship had cooled, replaced by a cordial but often tense coexistence. Despite these struggles, the Corrin family worked hard to maintain their image of perfection. They attended neighborhood barbecues with matching smiles, posted carefully curated family photos on social media, and spoke only in glowing terms about each other to friends and acquaintances. It was into this complex family dynamic that Zara Jackman stepped, her keen eyes quickly picking up on the undercurrents of tension and dissatisfaction. Where others saw a flawless facade, Zara perceived vulnerability, a family teetering on the edge of discord, ripe for manipulation. As Zara integrated herself into the Corrin household, she began to form her own narrative of the family dynamics. In her mind, Dwayne was an unappreciated husband and father, trapped in a loveless marriage with a woman who didn't understand him. The children, she believed, needed a stronger maternal figure, someone who could provide the stability and attention they craved. Little did the Corrin family know that the very person they had hired to help maintain their carefully constructed world would be the one to shatter it completely. As the weeks passed, Zara became an indispensable part of the Corrin household. Her dedication to the children was evident in the creative activities she planned, the patience she showed in helping with homework, and the genuine affection she seemed to have for Lila and Theo. Sandra found herself increasingly relying on Zara, grateful for the extra help as she focused on expanding her yoga business. But beneath Zara's helpful exterior, a dangerous obsession was taking root. Her initial attraction to Dwayne had blossomed into a full-fledged infatuation, fueled by their daily interactions and the glimpses she caught of his life. She began to catalog every detail about him: the way he liked his coffee in the morning, the cologne he wore, the sound of his laughter when he played with the children. Zara's fixation manifested in subtle ways at first. She would linger in Dwayne's home office, running her fingers over his books and inhaling the scent of his jacket left draped over a chair. When doing laundry, she would hold his shirts close, imagining what it would be like to be held by him. She volunteered to stay late, hoping to catch a moment alone with Dwayne when he returned from work. As her obsession grew, so did her resentment toward Sandra. In Zara's distorted view, Sandra was neglectful of her family, too focused on her own pursuits to appreciate the wonderful man she had married. Zara convinced herself that she could be a better wife to Dwayne, a better mother to the children. She began to insert herself more forcefully into family matters, offering unsolicited advice on everything from Dwayne's diet to the children's education. Dwayne, flattered by the attention and grateful for the help with the kids, failed to see the warning signs. He found himself looking forward to his interactions with Zara, drawn to her youthful energy and the way she seemed to hang on his every word. In Zara, he found the admiration and understanding he felt was lacking in his marriage. Sandra, however, began to sense that something was amiss. She noticed how Zara's eyes followed Dwayne around the room, the way the young woman's hand would linger a bit too long when passing him something. She saw how Zara tried to mimic her own style, buying similar clothes and even adopting some of her mannerisms. One evening, Sandra returned home early from a yoga class to find Zara wearing one of her dresses, standing in front of the mirror in the master bedroom. The young woman had been so engrossed in her fantasy that she hadn't heard Sandra enter. For a moment, they stared at each other in shocked silence before Zara stammered out an apology, claiming she had spilled something on her own clothes and needed to borrow something quickly. The incident left Sandra deeply unsettled. She tried to discuss her concerns with Dwayne, but he dismissed them as mere jealousy or overreaction. This dismissal drove a further wedge between them, exactly as Zara had hoped. As summer progressed, Zara's behavior became increasingly erratic. She began to accidentally run into Dwayne around town, showing up at his favorite coffee shop or the gym he frequented. She created problems in the house that required Dwayne's attention, manufacturing reasons for them to be alone together. In her private moments, Zara's fantasies took a dark turn. She imagined a life where Sandra no longer existed, where she could step seamlessly into the role of Dwayne's wife and the children's mother. The line between fantasy and reality began to blur in Zara's mind, her obsession consuming every aspect of her life. What had started as a harmless crush had morphed into a dangerous fixation. Zara was now willing to go to any lengths to make her twisted dreams a reality, setting the stage for a tragedy that would soon rock the quiet community to its core. The pivotal moment that pushed Zara over the edge came on a sweltering August evening. The Corn family had planned a weekend getaway to celebrate Dwayne and Sandra's upcoming 10th wedding anniversary. Zara, who had been initially asked to house sit, manipulated the situation so that her presence was required for the trip to help with the children. As they settled into the luxurious lake house, the tension between Dwayne and Sandra was palpable. An argument that had been brewing for weeks finally erupted, their heated words carrying across the still water. Zara, who had taken the children for a walk to give the couple privacy, returned to find Sandra in tears and Dwayne storming off to cool down. In that moment, Zara saw her opportunity. She comforted the children, tucking them into bed with soothing words and promises of a better tomorrow. Then she sought out Dwayne, finding him nursing a whiskey on the dock under the moonlight. Zara played the role of the sympathetic listener, allowing Dwayne to vent his frustrations about his marriage. As the night wore on and the whiskey flowed, Dwayne's inhibitions lowered. In a moment of weakness, he confided in Zara about his doubts, his fears, and his loneliness. Zara, seizing the moment, leaned in and kissed him. For a brief second, Dwayne responded before abruptly pulling away, horrified at what had transpired. Dwayne's rejection and subsequent apology to Sandra the next day shattered Zara's illusions. She realized that despite the problems in their marriage, Dwayne was committed to Sandra and their family. This realization, instead of deterring Zara, only fueled her determination. In her twisted logic, she concluded that the only thing standing between her and the life she desired was Sandra. On the drive back to Oak Lane, as Zara watched Dwayne and Sandra hold hands in reconciliation, a chilling resolve settled over her. She began to formulate a plan, one that would remove Sandra from the picture permanently. No longer content to wait and hope, Zara decided to take matters into her own hands. The carefree weekend that was meant to rejuvenate the Corrin family had instead set in motion a series of events that would lead to an unthinkable crime. Zara's obsession had crossed a line from which there was no return, and the quiet community was about to be rocked by a tragedy no one could have foreseen. In the weeks following the fateful weekend at the lake house, Zara's plan began to take shape with frightening precision. Her outward demeanor remained unchanged. She was still the perfect babysitter, doting on the children and maintaining a respectful distance from Dwayne. But behind her placid smile, a storm was brewing. Zara's first step was to gather information. She methodically went through the Corin home when no one was around, photographing documents, noting schedules, and searching for anything she could use. She paid particular attention to Sandra's routine, tracking her comings and goings with obsessive detail. Next, Zara began to subtly manipulate the family dynamics. She would accidentally mention seeing Sandra talking closely with a male yoga student, planting seeds of doubt in Dwayne's mind. She encouraged Sandra to take on more classes and responsibilities at her studio, knowing it would create more tension in the marriage. With the children, she would make offhand comments about how much happier everyone seemed when Mommy wasn't around, slowly poisoning their perception of Sandra. As her plan progressed, Zara took steps to create an alibi for herself. She enrolled in evening classes at the local community college, establishing a routine that would place her far from the Corin home on certain nights. She cultivated friendships with other babysitters in the neighborhood, ensuring she had people who could vouch for her character and whereabouts. One crucial element of Zara's plan involved technology. Using her knowledge from a brief stint in IT during college, she installed spyware on the family's computers and phones. This gave her access to emails, text messages, and even GPS locations. She used this information to stay one step ahead, always knowing where everyone was and what they were doing. Zara also began to alter her appearance subtly. She dyed her hair a shade closer to Sandra's, started wearing clothes that mimicked Sandra's style, and even adopted some of her mannerisms. In her deluded mind, she was preparing to step into Sandra's life seamlessly once the other woman was out of the picture. As the day she had chosen for her plan to culminate approached, Zara became more daring. She borrowed items from Sandra, a scarf here, a piece of jewelry there, things that could be used to implicate Sandra in nefarious activities if necessary. She also began to stockpile supplies, disposable gloves, cleaning products, and a set of clothes identical to what she planned to wear on the fateful day. Throughout all of this, Zara maintained her facade of normality. She continued to excel in her role as a babysitter, even receiving glowing praise from Sandra for her dedication. Dwayne, still guilt-ridden over the incident at the lake house, kept his distance, which only served to reinforce Zara's belief that he was unhappy in his marriage. The red flags were there, but they went unnoticed or were explained away. The slight changes in Zara's appearance were attributed to youthful experimentation. Her probing questions about the family's schedule were seen as conscientiousness, and even her occasional odd behavior was chalked up to the stress of working and studying. As summer turned to fall, the Corin family remained blissfully unaware of the danger that had taken root in their home. October 17th dawned crisp and clear, the autumn leaves a riot of red and gold against the pale blue sky. It was a day like any other in the community, but for Zara Jackman, it was the day everything would change, the day she would finally claim the life she believed was rightfully hers. Zara arrived at the Corin home early, her demeanor calm and collected. She greeted Sandra with a smile, discussing the day's schedule as if it were any other morning. Dwayne had already left for work, and the children were at school. Everything was proceeding according to plan. As Sandra prepared to leave for her morning yoga class, Zara made her move. She offered Sandra a smoothie, claiming it was a new energy-boosting recipe she'd learned. Sandra, always health-conscious, accepted gratefully. What she didn't know was that the smoothie was laced with a powerful sedative Zara had obtained through less-than-legal means. Within minutes, Sandra began to feel dizzy and disoriented. Zara, feigning concern, suggested she lie down for a moment. As Sandra's consciousness faded, Zara's mask of concern melted away, replaced by a cold determination. She methodically began to set her plan in motion. First, Zara changed into clothes identical to what Sandra had been wearing. She then carefully applied makeup to subtly alter her features, making herself look more like Sandra from a distance. With practiced ease, she gathered Sandra's personal effects, her phone, keys, and wallet. Next came the most crucial and disturbing part of her plan. Zara maneuvered Sandra's unconscious form into the trunk of Sandra's own car. She then drove to a pre-selected location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. There, in the dusty gloom, Zara committed the unthinkable act that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. The details of what transpired in that warehouse would later shock even the most hardened detectives. Suffice it to say, Zara's actions were brutal and methodical. She had planned for every contingency, using her knowledge of forensics to minimize evidence. When it was over, Zara stood over Sandra's lifeless body, her hands shaking not with remorse, but with a perverse sense of accomplishment. Zara then embarked on the next phase of her plan. She drove Sandra's car to a nearby lake, wiping it clean of fingerprints before pushing it into the water. She had chosen this spot carefully, knowing the depth and currents would make recovery difficult. With the grim task completed, Zara made her way back, using a series of prearranged rides and public transportation to avoid detection. She arrived back at the Corrin home just in time to greet the children as they returned from school, the perfect picture of a caring babysitter. As evening fell, Zara put her acting skills to the test. She called Dwayne, her voice filled with convincing concern, asking if he had heard from Sandra. She then suggested calling Sandra's yoga studio and some of her friends. As worry began to set in, Zara proposed calling the police to report Sandra missing. The hours that followed were a whirlwind of police activity and growing fear. Zara played her part perfectly, the concerned family friend offering support to Dwayne and comfort to the confused and frightened children. She answered the police's questions with just the right mix of helpfulness and anxiety, providing the alibi she had so carefully constructed. As night deepened and hope for Sandra's safe return diminished, Zara allowed herself a moment of private triumph. In her twisted mind, she had succeeded. Sandra was gone, and now she could step into the role she had coveted for so long. She imagined comforting Dwayne in his grief, becoming a mother to Lila and Theo, and finally having the family she believed she deserved. But even as Zara reveled in her perceived victory, the wheels of justice were already turning. The meticulous planning, the careful execution, none of it would be enough to hide the truth forever. The quiet community had been shattered by an act of unthinkable violence, and the aftermath would reveal dark secrets and shattered lives in ways no one could have anticipated. The disappearance of Sandra Corrin sent shockwaves through the community. As dawn broke the day after Sandra vanished, the quiet suburb transformed into a hive of police activity. Detective Ava Ramirez, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving complex cases, took charge of the investigation. The first 48 hours were crucial. Detective Ramirez and her team combed through the Corrin home, searching for any clues that might shed light on Sandra's disappearance. They interviewed neighbors, colleagues, and friends, building a timeline of Sandra's last known movements. Initially, the prevailing theory was that Sandra had left of her own accord. There were whispers of marital problems, of Sandra feeling stifled in her role as a wife and mother. But those who knew her best vehemently rejected this idea. Sandra, they insisted, would never abandon her children. As the investigation progressed, suspicion inevitably fell on Dwayne. It was a sad reality of such cases that the spouse was often the first person of interest. Dwayne's alibi for the day of Sandra's disappearance was solid. He had been in meetings at work all day, verified by multiple colleagues. Still, detectives probed into the couple's financial records and personal lives, leaving no stone unturned. Throughout the investigation, Zora remained a peripheral figure. She was interviewed as a witness, providing a detailed account of her last interactions with Sandra. Her demeanor was appropriately distraught, her story consistent. To the investigators, she appeared to be nothing more than a concerned babysitter, genuinely worried about the woman who had employed her. The community rallied around the Corrin family. Volunteers organized search parties, combing through nearby woods and parks. Flyers with Sandra's picture appeared on every street corner and in shop windows. Local news channels ran nightly updates on the case, keeping it in the public eye. As days turned into weeks with no sign of Sandra, the investigation began to stall. Leads dried up and theories grew more speculative. Detective Ramirez, refusing to give up, began to re-examine every piece of evidence, every interview, looking for anything they might have missed. It was during this painstaking review that she noticed something off about Zara's story. Digging deeper, Ramirez discovered that Zara's impeccable credentials had been carefully fabricated. The university she claimed to have graduated from had no record of her attendance. References, when contacted again, seemed hesitant and evasive. It was as if Zara Jackman had appeared out of thin air just months before she started working for the Corrin family. This revelation sparked a renewed investigation, this time focused on the babysitter who had seamlessly integrated herself into the Corrin household. As Ramirez and her team delved into Zara's past, a disturbing pattern emerged. They uncovered a trail of false identities and suspicious circumstances stretching back several years. A breakthrough came when they connected Zara to a case in another state. A married man had reported being stalked by a young woman matching Zara's description. The case had been dropped when the woman suddenly disappeared, but the similarities were striking. Armed with this new information, Ramirez brought Zara in for questioning. The interrogation was a masterclass in psychological warfare. For hours, Zara maintained her innocence, her carefully constructed persona holding firm. But as Ramirez methodically presented the evidence they had gathered, cracks began to show in Zara's facade. It was a seemingly innocuous question about Zara's childhood that finally broke her. In a moment of confusion, Zara mentioned a detail about her past that contradicted her earlier statements. Sensing weakness, Ramirez pressed harder. Suddenly, like a dam breaking, Zara's composure crumbled. In a chilling confession, she revealed the full extent of her obsession with Dwayne and her plot to replace Sandra. As Zara talked, the true horror of her actions came to light. She described in disturbing detail how she had planned and executed Sandra's murder, her voice devoid of remorse as she recounted the events of that fateful day. She spoke of her belief that she and Dwayne were meant to be together, that she was saving him from an unhappy marriage. With Zara's confession, the investigation shifted into high gear. Based on the information she provided, search teams were dispatched to the lake where Sandra's car had been dumped. After days of searching, the vehicle was recovered, providing crucial forensic evidence. The abandoned warehouse where the murder had taken place became a crime scene, yielding more damning evidence against Zara. Investigators were shocked by the level of premeditation revealed by what they found. It was clear that Zara had been planning this for months. As news of Zara's arrest broke, the community reeled in shock. Neighbors who had invited her into their homes, parents who had trusted her with their children, all struggled to reconcile the friendly babysitter they thought they knew with the disturbed individual revealed by the investigation. As the case moved to trial, more details of Zara's troubled past came to light. A history of obsessive behavior, stalking, and identity fraud painted a picture of a deeply disturbed individual. Mental health experts debated the extent of her psychological issues, but all agreed that she represented a dangerous combination of cunning and instability. At the trial, Zara, now fully embracing her notoriety, showed no remorse for her actions. Her chilling testimony, recounting her obsession and the murder with an unsettling calmness, left the courtroom in stunned silence. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, from forensic analysis to Zara's own meticulous records of her plan. In the end, the jury took less than a day to reach a verdict. Zara Jackman was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As she was led from the courtroom, her final glance at Dwayne sent chills through all who witnessed it, a look not of remorse, but of possessive longing. For the residents of Oak Lane, the conclusion of the trial brought a mixture of relief and lingering unease. The picturesque suburb had lost its innocence, its sense of safety shattered by the knowledge that such darkness could lurk behind a friendly smile and a helping hand. Thank you for watching today's video. If you found this story as chilling as we did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more true crime stories. Follow us on TikTok for daily updates and true crime content. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.